Office sharing is on the rise, and as the trend becomes a mainstay for new companies looking for spaces to work, it's more important than ever to stand out. Brad Smith sat down with Amol Sarva, CEO of Knotel, to discuss the trend. Check it out.
So we want to talk about the expansion that Knotel is going through right now, crossing 600,000 square feet, San Francisco, New York City. What do you think about as you guys reach this new milestone and get ready to really cross that next big...
Oh, we're just getting started. We're nowhere still. I think a year and a half ago, we might have been an eighth of the size that we are now. And as much as we've grown a ton, I mean, we're going to add another 100,000 square feet by the end of the month. And we'll be crossing 1 million in January, February. We'll be bigger than Regis in New York by springtime. We are just growing like crazy. And it's just because the business is on fire. Demand is insane for flexible office. There is nobody who can predict the future.
Right.
10 years or 7 years or 5 years in the future. And your office is one of the biggest spending items in a company. So if you come to us, you control it. You save a third every month, and you can sleep at night.
So let's talk about that flexible office, because in terms of the overall kind of shared office spaces or new office spaces where companies can actually, you know, without having to buy their own building, have a floor or have a space that they're working with, it's kind of expanded and blown up, really.
Oh, it's been massive.
It's been amazing to watch the transformation of the industry. So when you take a step back and look at the trends that you're watching, what are you excited about? Is there international expansion as well on the table that you see, perhaps?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the trend is to flexible office. So the lease that somebody signed 30 or 40 years ago was like 50 years. In 2000, you might have signed a 15-year lease. A couple years ago, you might have signed a 10-year lease. Average broker right now is talking about a 5 or 7. But all these leases are big obligations. They put your company at peril. And so the ocean is moving towards flexible. And this new kind of model, as you can see in co-working or in some of the professional suites businesses, is around. But I think we're still in the sort of BlackBerry days, if you think of smartphones, or the AOL days, if you think of the internet, or some other, you know, like the MySpace days of social networking. Like, there's some kind of cool attention-grabbing businesses out there that everyone thinks, oh, cool, game over. Not even close. We're in just the first few innings of the change of the way everybody runs their office.
Interesting. And so in terms of coming back to that international expansion, what regions do you think present the largest opportunity to go into next?
There are a handful of super cities in the world that have just been winning for the last 25 years. New York is absolutely one of them, San Francisco, and it's simple to think of the other places that are expensive, dense, where labor cost is high. In those places where the best companies want to be, the creative and growing companies, flexibility saves them money. It saves them money every month, and it makes their presentation better. Big companies, great companies, growing companies like, you know, this company, Cheddar, they don't want to be in a box somewhere inside somebody else's nightclub. They want to have their own headquarters. And so what we figured out early on was that co-working was kind of a clue. But the real opportunity was run headquarters as a service, let people scale. You let me know, and then next month you can be bigger. You need to pull back a bit, cool, we'll take care of it.
And earlier this year, it was announced as well that Knotel would actually triple its presence in New York City in 2017. Did that happen, and what are some of the learnings that you've been able to take away from it?
We're more than 3 times bigger than we started. I mean, we started this year with like 100,000 feet. We'll finish with 700. Next year, there'll be several million square feet that we manage for owners. And the really big thing that we've pushed through this year is we are now working with some of the biggest and best ownership groups, portfolio managers and REITs in the world. Super sophisticated guys who realize that we make them more money, number one. And number two, it turns out we make these ownership groups more money in an all-weather strategy. So I've had this tongue-in-cheek grave dancer idea in my mind for the last few months. And the point is, real estate is cyclical. It goes up and it goes down, but people always need their office. If you write long-term leases and do some kind of co-working deal, you end up with a really brittle partnership. Those guys could go out of business, whatever. Instead, what we do is something that is a tried, tested, and proven model from the hotel and lodging business, where we share revenue with you. In good times, you make more money. You don't give all the money to us.
Yeah.
And when things pull back, you're still in business. The floors are full. People are still doing stuff. And this all-weather approach to how you manage office, that's going to be the dominant model.
You say it's cyclical. Where would you say that we're at in that cycle right now, knowing some of these trends that you just mentioned about the opportunities in international expansion, how businesses are trying to make sure that they're presenting a space that allows for expansion as well as they continue to grow?
The macro has been amazing. It has lasted longer than many people expected. And I think the smartest folks have been moving to cash. I mean, this guy that I quite admire, that I think everybody knows, Sam Zell, has this nickname, the Grave Dancer. And I met him recently, and he told me how he got the nickname. He gave it to himself, which is just the best. And every cycle that's come up, he's moved to cash. And when the cycle comes close to its peak, he's a buyer. I've been watching what he's been doing the last 6 months, actually for a couple of years. He's been moving to cash. This thing is going to, when the market turns, I've been practicing my dance moves, and when the music starts, we are going to be the absolute best partner for ownership that sees its vacancy coming up as corporates pull back, as they have whole huge new projects in places like Go Honest that maybe they didn't have a corporate tenant for, and their obligations under their debt start getting a little bit stressful. We will be the first phone call that people should make.
And that's the tie-in to your sweater as well. Grave dancer. All right, cool. So wearing it, wearing the message. I like it. So moving right along, in terms of industries that you look to work with, I mean, you've had the opportunity to watch a lot of businesses grow in these spaces and then be able to continue that growth, whether it be with Knotel or whether it be in making a large real estate investment if they have to transition into that. Are there industries that present the most opportunity for you to partner with companies?
Every company in every category should be doing Knotel and not signing leases, unless you like committing to 10 years of fixed obligations, like taking out a huge loan, which you can't control when market conditions change for you. So it's every category. When we started, I mean, I'm a startup builder. I started a bunch of companies. I started Virgin Mobile, which went public. I started a smartphone company called Peak, which was acquired by SoftBank, a little bit ironic, and a bunch of other software, neuroscience, enterprise type companies. And in building these companies, I found this model works better. So my early customers in the early days of Knotel, they were startups. Now, overwhelmingly, huge global corporates. The body shop headquarters in North America is a Knotel. Huge media groups like Bauer Media out of Europe, their North American headquarters is with us. The French research company Ipsos, their headquarters in North America is with us. Companies that want to define their own identity and culture with their main office, they've been choosing us. And as you can tell from some of my foreign customers, I'm going to go to their cities too.
Yeah. In terms of staying right here in New York City, we know that $25 million VC funding was raised recently as well. So let's talk about how that goes into some of the new projects. Also, speaking of Go Honest.
Yeah, well, we raised $25 million in equity at the beginning of the year. There'll be more financings. We're building a vast global enterprise. We're just in the very first innings of it. We're nowhere close to where we want to be. And as we get bigger and bigger and bigger, we're going to do more in different kinds of deals. For example, we are the co-owner and part developer of a big new project, 150,000 square feet in Go Honest, Brooklyn, which is a perfect example of how real estate owners and investors can use Knotel. We're the user. You build a building, you know Go Honest is going to be an office market, but you haven't yet done the deal with Vice or whoever you think is going to sign a multi-year lease for you. You put Knotel in at inception. You do the financing with Knotel at inception, and it opens full. Predicting 3 years in the future, where will we be in the macro? Will Go Honest have the, you know, whatever, the New York ferry that gets you access or something on time? It doesn't matter. Any market where office works, Knotel works.
Absolutely. All right, that's a good place to leave things. Thank you so much for joining us here today on Cheddar. That's Amol Sarva, CEO of Knotel.